Hello and welcome to Hump Day Hangouts. This is episode 454. Today is the 26th of July, 2023. Going to get into some good questions. And if you're here live, let us know, say hello, all that sort of good thing. I do want to say, though, if you're catching the replay and you're not subscribed to Semantic Mastery, you might be doing it wrong. Just click subscribe, stay up to date. That way you can get notified about when we're going live with Hump Day Hangouts, but also in case you didn't know, we take Hump Day Hangouts and then we chop them up into all the individual questions, which makes it much easier to go back. Potentially, if you asked a question, you weren't able to be here live, you can catch up that way. Although I will say it is great if you're here live. Occasionally we need some clarifications. You asked a question and maybe it's ambiguous or we got some follow-on stuff. If you're here live, we can go back and forth with you and get that all figured out. So it really does pay off to be live. With that said, going to say hi to the guys. I've got a couple quick announcements and then we will get into it. So Chris, how you doing today?
Pretty good. Busy as usual. I'm very happy actually because it cooled down a little bit today. Bit of rain. Wasn't so nice Monday and Tuesday, but yeah, like things are way more in my climate zone now again.
Nice. All right, Bradley, how about you? How are things going?
Good, crazy busy, but good. Happy to be here. Yeah, short and sweet.
All right, easy. Well, I wanted to say we had a bunch of people joining us for the Local Fury webinar last Monday. That was great. Appreciate everyone that showed up. We had some really good questions. Really like that. And a bunch of people took advantage of kind of the update webinar special deal we had. If you know, that's passed now, but if you want to find out more about Local Fury, you can check out the replay. I'll put the link in here, or you can just go to localfury.com. The other thing I wanted to talk about was I just was going back and forth with emails. We're locking down the event location for POFU Live is in the greater Boston area. And so as soon as I get the contract signed, I'll be updating the page and letting everybody know where that's going to be. And then the same thing with the VIP event. We are taking over an entire location. So excited about that. Again, once we get that nailed down and get the contract signed, we'll be updating that. So if you haven't yet gotten your ticket to join us in Boston, September 29th and 30th at POFU Live to not only see our beautiful faces, but also the other speakers who are coming live to talk at POFU Live, grab your ticket. It's a ton of fun. Really happy we're doing it live and in person again. Should be a great time.
Yeah, we got.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got Peter Drew to accept. He's going to be a guest presenter,
right? And
I've got one other that replied to my invitation, and I'm just waiting on confirmation. He had to clear it with his wife first, so. But we might be having another person announced next week too. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, that is it for me. Anything else you guys think we need to go over?
I think we're good. Let's get into questions. We don't have too many, so hopefully we can get into some chat stuff with some of you guys, because I know sometimes I don't even get a chance to look at it. So, all right, let me grab the screen. We'll get into it. Okay, so the first one's from Casey. Hey guys, what are your thoughts on cloaked websites or cloaked sites? Websites that publish lots of content and present to search engines, but if a person lands on it, it redirects. Can they be long-term if they redirect to what users would expect and not random spammy crap? For example, heaps of pages about rank tracking software that redirects to a quality comparison blog article. I mean, cloaking is, from what I understand, it's against Google's terms of service, and you could potentially get de-indexed for that. But I mean, people do it all the time, right? And that's something that we've done for lead gen for a long time, right? You set up a site and rank it, and then you can end up cloaking a prospect site onto it. So essentially using like a cloaking plugin or whatever, a script. There's a number of ways to do it, but where you can overlay a prospect's website on top of your site. And then I've done that in the past many times for prospecting purposes. Like if I have a lead gen asset that I'm able to rank, that I've ranked, and then throughout prospecting, do an overlay of a prospect site on top of my site, so that then I can tell them in a video email, which is generally how I would do it. But sometimes on a call, I could tell them like, hey, are you in front of Google? go to Google and search for tree service Culpeper, and you see what's number one, click on it. Tell me what you see. And then they see their website. It's not their website in the search results, but when they click on the search, the top number one or whatever position it's in, they see their site. And that's, you know, a great way to close local businesses if you've got lead gen assets, is to do that kind of a thing. But that was always kind of a temporary thing, or, you know, because generally I wouldn't leave the cloak up. I know other lead gen people do that, where they'll rank their own sites and then just cloak their, you know, overlay their lead buyer's site on top of it. But again, it can get your site de-indexed for that. It can also potentially harm the client site too, your client site. So I know that's not what you're asking specifically, Casey. I'm a local guy, so that's, you know, I do local SEO, so that's kind of the context that I have experience in doing this kind of a thing. It's against Google's terms of service, so just be careful doing it. I don't know if it's a good long-term strategy. I don't know that I would leave them up long-term. I know a lot of lead gen guys have left them up long time. And I've heard of sometimes things being caught and de-indexed, but it's not that common. But, you know, like I said, use it at your own risk is what I'm saying. So I don't know about a long-term strategy. It's not something I do a lot of. So I don't really have a lot of experience on that. I think it works great for the reasons that I just mentioned for local stuff as a temporary redirect. Because if somebody ends up buying or renting a site from me, then what I end up doing is just directing the leads to them. I don't rebrand it and everything else, or do an overlay and leave it up, because I've always been concerned that would end up causing not only my site to be indexed, but theirs as well. Right. And so I've always been concerned about doing that. I'm overly cautious when it comes to that, because I think I don't want to ever be the reason that somebody else's site got de-indexed, if that makes sense. So anyway, hopefully that's clear. I don't know if it's a long-term strategy. I would be wary of it for those reasons. You could set up a redirect though, instead of a cloaking, like, you know what I mean? Like there's a difference between a cloak and, like, for example, with a meta refresh is an acceptable way to do it. If it's a relevant page link redirecting to another relevant page, what's interesting is you can rank a site, but then if you meta or a page, and then you can meta refresh it to a different target URL. And as long as they're similarly, you know, similar content related, then I've seen where the ranked site will, like, it'll make sense if I explain this as in an example. So many years ago, I learned that you can set a meta refresh in certain Web 2.0 properties. Weebly's one of them, Blogger, Tumblr. There's a few of them where you can inject a snippet of code into the HTML header. Any site that allows you to do that, you can inject a meta refresh code, right? And so think of, like, you know, Blogger, just as an example. If you were to take a Blogger and rank it, so put well-tuned content on it, and then you could spam the living shit out of that Blogger blog to get it to rank. I don't typically do that now, although I still occasionally will do some kind of work like that. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, let's just say you rank the Blogger. It doesn't have to be Blogger. I'm just using that as an example. You rank the Blogger, and then you go in, once it's ranked, then you can go in and add a meta refresh code into the HTML header of that site. You got to go in and edit the HTML and put it into the header. And it's been a while since I did it for Blogger, so I'm not even sure if that's still available. I assume it is, but I'm not 100% sure. Tumblr, it should still be available. Weebly, it should still be available. The point that I'm trying to make is, once you rank that page, then you can set a meta refresh to a page that it would be similar, and it takes a little while, a couple of days or whatever, a week, whatever, however long it takes for Google to recognize it. But then all of a sudden, if that Blogger was ranked, it will replace in the search results with what it's meta refreshed to. It's very interesting. Years ago, I did this with a Weebly site, and for a plumbing client that I'd got in Manassas, Virginia. I'll never forget it, because I learned about the technique on a Friday, I think it was. And Friday night, I set up a Weebly site that was optimized for, you know, Manassas plumber or plumber Manassas or whatever it was. And I bought a bunch of spam backlinks from, like, 1hourbacklinks.com. Some of you guys that have been around for a long time probably remember that, but it was like pure kitchen sink spam. And I spent like $80 or something like that to get thousands and thousands of spam links to hit this, and they were delivered within like 12 hours, right? The links were placed and delivered. So by Monday, when I got back from wherever I was for the weekend, the son of a bitch was ranked #1, I swear to God, for plumbing contractor or whatever it was, Manassas, Virginia. And it was ranked #1, this Weebly site. So, and I had just landed a new client, like a plumbing client, the previous week. So all I did was went in and inserted that meta refresh code to the plumbing client site that had just hired me a week before. And I was able to contact them like later that week. So this was on a Monday that I set up the meta refresh. And so immediately you can go in and see the redirect. So I sent the client an email and said, okay, go to Google and search, plumber Manassas or whatever the keyword was. And look in the #1 position and click on it and tell me what you see. And then I got a reply back to them like, I don't know what you did, but that's amazing. And I was like, well, just give it a few days and then it'll be your website in the search results, not just something that you click on and then it shows you your website, if that makes sense. And anyway, it was really cool. And for years I did that. I know that you can still do that. I know for sure, because I actually just published a post in our mastermind earlier today about a very useful place to add a meta refresh. So I know that it's still available. Again, I'm not 100% sure if you can still do it with Blogger. I know you can with Tumblr. I'm pretty sure you can still do it with Weebly. So there are a few of them that you can do that kind of stuff with. So meta refreshes are valid. I've never caught a penalty or had anything de-indexed from a meta refresh, provided I've been, meta refreshing from from one page to another that's similar, shares the same kind of topic, etc. That makes sense. So anyway. Next is Darren. He says, what are some points to maintain good retention with rank and rent? In the past, dealing with local businesses for SEO in my agency, I found many wanted to stop after 3 or 4 months as they had results. It didn't need to pay me anymore. Well, if it's rank and rent, how do they have good results and don't need to pay you anymore? I'm asking, Darren. I'm not being a jerk. I'm asking. Because if it's rank and rent, it's your assets that are ranking and producing the leads. So how did they get results and don't need to pay you anymore if they're renting your assets? I'm just curious. Are you also doing retainer work for them? And then you get better results and then they, for their brand. And so they decide they don't need to continue renting your assets. And if that's the case, then you can go to their competitor and monetize it with their competitor and do the same process all over again. Like seriously. So I'm not sure I understand the question, because if it's rank and rent, that means they're your assets. So how is that giving them better results that they don't need to pay you anymore? The results come from your assets, right? Unless I'm just misunderstanding the question. So I'm just curious about that. I'm not sure if this will be also the case with rank and rent, and if possible, avoid wanting to have to constantly find new potential lead buyers and be left with unmonetized traffic in the meantime, if possible. Yeah, and that's, that is an issue. That is a problem that occurs with lead gen and rank and rent. That's why it's important to try to make it sticky, right? Find some sticky component that you can add, which is what I do with my tree contractors. I've talked about this a lot, but in order for me to do a lead gen or rank and rent model with my tree contractors, I force them to at least subscribe to my high level app, which I call the lead management app or tree marketing tech, tree care HQ app. I've called it a number of things, but it's all the same damn thing. It's a sub account in high level that I use to help them manage their leads, but also because it sends out review requests and things like that. And remember, if it's my own assets, my own lead gen assets, if I have Google business profiles, I want to generate reviews to my Google business profiles. So I force them to use my high level app for $100 a month. And that's all I do is charge them $100 a month for it. And I know a lot of people are like, man, you should charge more. Look, for me, it's not about the revenue from the high level account. For me, it's about keeping them stuck to me, right? Whether, because they get to using the app, and a lot of them end up, once they get comfortable with it, and some of them just don't want to use it, but the ones that do, they end up becoming reliant on it, right? It becomes part of their business, their standard operating procedures for how they manage their leads and things like that. So it's a sticky component. It makes them more sticky. And even if they want to cancel services, it's a separate subscription that I set up for them for the lead management app, so that they're still paying me. They can cancel the SEO or the rank and rent or whatever it is that they want. But if they're using my app and they've gotten used to using it for managing leads and keeping track of everything, which it's beneficial for them to do so, then they still continue paying me for that. And in some cases, they'll come back. In some cases, like because a lot of the times the tree contractors for me will say in the winter that they want to suspend services or pause subscription until the springtime. And when I don't have some sort of a sticky component, most of them don't come back because, it depends. If it was a rank and rent or something like that, then they generally come back. But if I've done any work on their brand and ranked and helped their brand to rank, then a lot of times they don't come back unless they're constantly reminded that I helped them, right, by using my app, and then they come back, or sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. So hopefully that makes sense. One thing is to find a sticky component that you can add in, something that you can charge them separately for. Again, I love doing that, the high level app, because you can sell it as a lead management app, as a review generation tool or reputation building tool, all kind database reactivation or list reactivation, whatever you want to call it. There's a number of different things that you can do with it. So there's a lot of, in my industry, in the tree service industry, there's a lot of guys that still work on, like, their scheduling system is literally a notebook, right? Like a day planner or weekly planner or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of guys are like that in the tree service industry. They just don't use technology. And so if I can get them to accept the lead management app and use that as a, like I said, the sticky component, and get them using that, they a lot of the times will increase revenue literally without generating any additional leads. They'll start generating more revenue from the existing leads that they, whatever the lead volume or lead flow is that they currently get, because there's an automated follow-up system built into the app, which a lot of guys in my industry, the tree service industry, like I said, they don't have systems at all. Or if they do, it's a very manual systems. And so their follow-up sucks. Right. And so again, they might get a lead, but if they don't follow up with that lead properly, they end up losing the sale. Or even if they scheduled the estimate and they go out and they, do the estimate and then present the proposal for the job, they don't follow up with the client enough or consistently enough to close that proposal, right? To get the client to accept, they don't close the sale. They might send the proposal. I'm not saying this about all of them, but a lot of them do this. They have really poor follow-up, but the lead management app automates that, right? It makes it automatic. They don't have to worry about it. So again, I pitch that when I'm telling them about my lead management app. I tell them, like, look, even with the amount of whatever your current lead flow is, you're going to, once you start to use this app, and use it consistently, you'll see that your revenue will increase because you'll close more sales from the same number of leads that you currently get. Without us generating any more leads, you will likely close more business, more jobs, because of the app, because of the automated follow-up system and everything else. And it builds a list so that you can do list reactivation. You can do email marketing for tree service contractors. About once per quarter is a good time to send out an email to the list, talking about what type of tree care services should be done at the change of each season. If that makes sense. So these are all things that I pitch to the tree contractor when I'm talking to them about whether it's rank and rent or pay per lead or revenue share, or even just straight up retainer based, traditional agency services. In any one of those cases, I pitch the importance of having that, using the app and learning, using it consistently because of all the reasons that I just stated, right? Building a list reactivation, review solicitation, appointment reminders, all of that stuff. That's clear. So that's the way that I do it. And sometimes you're still going to have to remonetize. And that's why, in the coming months, when I finish this program that I've been developing for months, I've got a lot of solutions for that. And by the way, these are all solutions that I've developed because of my own agency in dealing with many of the points that Darren just mentioned, right? Which was, retention and turnover and having lead gen assets that sometimes you got to remonetize 3 or 4 times in a year. That sucks. That's no fun. So out of necessity for preventing that in my own business, I've been working for a long time now on developing a way to kind of prevent that, or to at least reduce it. And we're getting close. We're getting close to being able to launch that, guys. Hopefully it'll be available by the end of September, or we're going to launch it, I hope, in October. So we'll see. Moving on, Lester says, hey guys, is it a good idea to build out multiple drive stacks for an authority site that are focused around key categories and link back to the category content on the money site as well as the main branded stack in a competitive market and trying to think outside the box things to do? Think of outside the box things to do. Yeah, from what I understand, I've not really done multiple stacks. I usually just do one like branded stack and then just continually add to that and build silo structure into the drive, the Google site and all of that. But I know other people that do it that way. Again, I've not personally done it that way, but I know other people. David Morgan is always attending Hump Day Hangouts, and he's a drive stack ninja. You should probably converse with him, and he does drive stacks on Legit and a couple other marketplaces. Perhaps you might want to reach out to him and chat with him. Because I think David, yeah, there you are, David. Of course you're here. If you, what are your thoughts, David? You probably do multiple stacks, right? I've never really done that. One stack per location is all that's necessary, is what he says. Okay, and that's typically the way I've done it. Like, well, if it's a multi-location brand, then for local stuff, then I've done it both ways, where I've done separate drive stacks per location. But I prefer to do one drive stack for the brand and then build silo structure into the G site for each location, because you can build a lot of authority to a G site, and then it makes it easier to rank when you add subsequent locations, because the G site itself has a lot of authority and inbound link flow if you're building links to it, etc. So that's typically the way that I've done it. But I know that, again, some of the other guys that do drive stack stuff do multiple stacks. It's just not the method. I always preferred to build one G site and really flesh it out. That's just my own preference, but I know that you can get results the other way. Anyway, as I mentioned, if you want to chat with somebody that can also fulfill those for you, get with David Morgan, vetted, and or some of the other marketplaces. Chat with him, because he's good. He's better at that stuff than I. Don't like to build them. I just purchase them, and then once I have them, we add to them. So anyway, hopefully that's clear. Yeah, I mean, the beautiful thing about G sites is you can use them as link building targets and do some real nasty stuff. I don't usually do that to the branded stack, but if you have additional like supporting stacks that aren't branded, man, you can spam the shit out of those. I don't do that with branded assets, but you can do a lot of high volume link building to those G sites and stuff. We did that for years. That's all we did for years. So Kurt's up. He says, hey guys, would it help to publish content to our GMB in the form of posts that talk about the target location or service area, for example, some history of city or top picks for hotels or city or places to visit, etc., with images, etc.? I don't know. I've not tested that. To me, if it's not relevant to the actual business products or services of the business, it doesn't really make sense to publish that kind of content. Again, I've not tested with that, Kurt. I can't. Would it help to publish content? I don't know. If there's not some logical way to tie that type of a post back to the business, I wouldn't publish it. And it's just because where is the relation to that? Like, I'm not saying it can't be done, or that you can test it. I can't imagine it causing any harm. I mean, I don't know. Not done it. But here's the thing. Okay, guys, for a while, a long time, for several years, you could get results by publishing just straight up geo posts on your money site, which would mean like you just, in a lot of time, like there were plugins out there and also training courses that would teach you how to go out and just publish geo posts that aren't even in the navigation menu. Like they're basically orphaned pages or posts on the site, which means there's not a way to get to them from any navigation item on the page. If you know the pages are there and you can get them crawled, but they're orphaned pages, but they were just straight up posts or pages about geographic or points of interest, etc., within a particular geographic area. And for a while that had an effect on maps rankings. But what I found was that over time, Google, I guess, caught on to it or whatever. And if it's not relevant, if there's no logical or if there's no logical connection between the post and the products or services that the business provides, then it doesn't have an effect. At least that's been through my own testing. That's what I have experienced. How do I know this? Well, because I've purchased a bunch of those plugins in the past to test them. One of them was called by WP Amplify. It was called Local Prominence. That was one of them that I bought multiple licenses for. It would integrate with Google's Places API. So it would pull in places from Google Places and optimize with schema and everything. But it would post just straight up geo posts like that were just points of interest. And it worked for about a year. It produced an effect, had an effect on maps. But then it stopped working, like not just the plugin itself, but like the effect, the results, it wouldn't produce the results. And so I started testing that a lot across some different type of site structures that I've developed. One of them that was actually from a high level template originally, but then I converted it into WordPress. And that's actually the template that I use now still to this day for all of my local sites, which is building geo relevance into city pages or service pages or both. And what I found is that because you're integrating geo-relevance data into products, stuff that is related to your products or services that the business provides, that has an effect. But when just publishing straight up geo posts that have points of interest posts that have no relation or tie back to the products or services other than they're published on the same domain, I found that just isn't as effective. Again, this is just through my own testing, guys. Some of you might have a different experience, but I'd found that unless there is a relevant connection between the products, the post that is optimized primarily for points of interest or geo signals, but unless there is a relevant tie back to the products or services of the business, it has no effect. That again has been my experience through my own testing over the last year or so, which is why I use the site structure that I use now, because we have where the posts are primarily talking about the products or services that the company provides, optimized for a particular location, and then we inject geo-relevance into that page, if that makes sense. So as it relates to Google Business posts, the same type, I would assume without testing, I don't know, but my assumption would be that it's the same type of a thing. If you want to do geo posts on Google Business, remember you only get 1,500 characters. So you have which is roughly 200 to 225 words. So you got about 200 to 225 words to optimize for a particular point of interest, but somehow relate that back to the products or service that business provides. And then it should be effective. At least that's, again, through my own testing, that's what I've experienced. So hopefully that's clear. Yeah. All right. So, hey, SM, rank and rent projects. For rank and rent projects, would you recommend building sites around a city or only go after niches that can go statewide or national? Well, I recommend going after an industry or a niche, because then you can scale. Build a brand, guys. I can't stress that enough. And I've been talking about that for years, actually. Build a brand. Google recognizes brands. So if you're building a city-specific site, yeah, you can build a brand out of that, but it's pretty much pigeonholed to that. Well, that's not true. You know, you could start with a brand in a particular city and then expand. In any case, build a branded site is what I'm saying. Build a brand, because that's what matters. If you build authority to a brand / entity, right? A brand is an entity. Then you can build a lot of authority to it, and over time it becomes easier when you add subsequent locations to rank. I've been talking about that for years, which is again going back to the G site discussion we just had a moment ago. Instead of building multiple different G sites, why not build one and power and build silo structure into it for multi-location businesses? You can add a top level page for each city, right? And that starts a silo, and then you add sub pages into that silo, all of that. Because now, again, over time, as you build more topical authority through the site structure and the content of the site itself, but also build authority through external backlinks to the site, you're going to power that asset up so that as you add additional or expand and you add additional locations, they instantly benefit from the authority of the domain or the site, whatever. Does that make sense? So it's easier to scale over time when you have built authority to a particular brand in one site, right? So that's why I always prefer to do it that way, because, you know, over time, like I said, the first 5 or 6 locations that you publish, you're probably going to have to, it's like starting from scratch with every one. But once you get to a certain level of like recognition by Google, like that you built enough authority to the local entity that it makes it easier when you publish a new location. All of a sudden, you'll notice that as you publish new locations, they tend to rank quicker. Sometimes in low competition areas, you'll rank instantly. As soon as it gets indexed, you'll rank because you've built authority to the brand, the domain, etc. Does that make sense? So I would prefer to go, and again, this is what I teach guys. The program that I keep referencing is called Directory Hybrid Agency. I hope to launch that in October. My goal is to release the training into our mastermind. There will be a separate, as of our live event, POFU Live, which is at the end of September. And then the goal after that is to launch it as an actual course. But it's a whole business in a box. And that's about building a directory and choosing an industry, building a directory, and then building a local component, which is what I call the directory local site, which is building lead gen assets that can be used for rank and rent, pay per lead, or even just for prospecting purposes. But again, it's always on it's one brand that you go nationally with, if that makes sense, because it's, in my opinion, it's better that way. So, sorry. I prefer to do niche industry specific stuff. And you can always, by the way, you can start, pick an industry. So decide on a brand name, right? Something that's memorable, that's not generic, because it's easier to establish it as an entity if it's a brandable a unique name, right? So come up with something that can be a brandable name and build a site around it. You can start with just one location, one city, whatever. You can always expand later. But if you're going to do that, just keep in mind when you're planning out the project, you got to think about silo structure, like the architecture of the site. Like, how are you going to build the structure of the site? Because if you're going to expand nationally over time, that changes the way that I would build a site. So I would use what's called a complex silo structure versus simple silo, which means you have basically 3 different levels in the URL structure. You got root, then you have top level page, top level category, child page, subcategory, which is step 2. And in step 3 would be posts. And so again, it changes the way that I would build sites. If it's going to be a local or regional project, it's generally going to be a simple silo. If it's going to be a multi-state project, it's going to be a complex silo. And again, that's just the way that I structure the build. So just plan that out ahead of time. But like I said, if you just plan on building a national site around a particular brand, then it gives you a lot of options to expand later without having to start over from scratch. That's the point that I'm trying to make. To be decided says, have you found tools like Link Whisper useful? Testing that right now. Do you have anyone you recommend? Nope. I'm testing that one right now. I just started testing it. I bought it like 3 months ago. Just started testing it about maybe 2 weeks ago. So in theory, it seems like it's going to be great. And I've got a very specific way of using it with my directory. I taught about this in our mastermind last week, but I started testing it specifically with my directory. And there's a reason why. I'm not going to cover that here, but I'm testing it right now. So I don't have enough data on that yet. It's going to be a few weeks before I have any. In theory, it seems like it's great. And I expect it to help and perform well based on the way that I'm using it with my directory, but I don't know yet. I don't have the results yet. So this one from Phil says, hey guys, with rank and rent, do you think it's a good idea to have multiple renters? For example, have a silo for plumbers and another silo rented out for another business for roofing, all on a trades related domain? No, in my opinion, no. Go with a single niche site and have, if you want to target multiple niches, which I don't recommend, you'll spread yourself too thin. Just pick one, pick plumbers or whatever. If plumbers is it, you mentioned that one, pick plumbers and build a plumbing site. Remember guys, think about all the specialized services within the plumbing industry or the HVAC industry or electrical or roofing, right? So that if you're going to build a site, build a site around plumbing, and then you build silos about the different plumbing services, right? Make it entirely about plumbing. I know a lot of people that think that if you niche down that you are reducing your pool of potential buyers when it's actually the exact opposite, guys. And I know I've been hammering away at that for years with you guys. And I know a lot of people that just, they don't think that. You think that if you niche down, you're going to limit your ability to generate revenue. And that's exactly opposite. If you niche down, you will significantly increase your ability to generate revenue for a number of reasons. It becomes easier to scale because everything that you're going to do is going to require trial and error to get good results. So once you dial in on one industry, right, which takes time, it takes time and effort and trial and error in order to dial things in on every level, right? Not just the SEO, but how to sell it, how to communicate with the business owners, how to write copy, which ads convert. So the creatives, design, like all of that stuff, messaging, all of those things need to be dialed in for a particular industry to get really good results. So if you're trying to do that across 10 different industries, how do you get good at any of them? You're not going to get good at any of them, right? If you're trying to spread yourself out across too many, it's too much work. So pick one and get really good at that. Dial in everything that you do to get really good results, not only SEO results, but sales results, being able to sell the service, being able to communicate well with business owners there, being able to understand the industry from a consumer standpoint and the business owner standpoint. Does that make sense? Do all of that, and it makes it easier to scale your business, and you can charge higher prices, right? Because why would somebody doesn't go to a general practitioner for heart surgery? They go to a fucking heart surgeon, right? So again, why would a tree service contractor go to a general marketing agency when they can go to a tree service marketing agency? Right? I can charge higher prices because I am specifically catering to their industry. Right. And so again, not only that, but you start to get people to seek you out versus you always trying to push your services out into the world and just hope that there are a few people that will take you up on it. So again, and here's the thing, guys, I learned this over time through trial and error. Because I thought that I was niching down when I went from a Me Too generalist agency to just working with home service contractors. I thought, okay, well, I've picked a niche. It's home service contractors. Bullshit. That's not a niche. That's not a niche, right? I was working plumbers, electricians, HVAC, landscapers, tree care professionals, roofers. I've worked with all of those different types of septic service companies. Like I've worked with all pest control companies, all of these different companies, because I said I niched down to home service contractors or home services. That's not niching down. All I did was just went from learning keywords across different kind of industries like insurance and real estate and all these other things to learning all the different keywords for all the different trades, right? And it's not niching down when you do that. So saying I'm only going to work with contractors is not niching down. Pick plumbers or pick roofers or pick whatever and go in after that. And remember, if you're going to like build a directory or something like, which is what I recommend, seriously, pick a specialized service within an industry, because there are other plumbing directories out there. There are other roofing directories or other contractor directories out there. So pick a specialized service within an industry and build a directory around that. Doesn't mean that you can only offer SEO services for that one service. That's just your foot in the door and it's a conversation starter, right? If all plumbers do water heater replacement, right? That's one service of many that they provide. I'm just saying, or drain cleaning, whatever, something like that, that you can build a directory around drain cleaning plumbers or drain cleaners or something like that. I'm just using this as an example. It's purely hypothetical. But you build a directory around that, you will likely be able to rank that because you're not competing with plumbers, you're competing with drain cleaners, which won't be there's not going to be a lot of competition in that. So you can rank that, you will catch the attention of some plumbers. They will probably submit their listing information as a user submitted listing. And now they go into your sales pipeline and now you can pitch to them. And remember, you're a plumber. I'm just using this as an example. If you focus in on plumbing SEO, which there are other companies that do that too, by the way, but if you focus in on plumber SEO, but you get their attention through like a drain cleaning directory or a water heater repair or replacement directory or something like that, you can always sell SEO services to them as a plumbing contractor instead of just like, oh, all I can do is SEO for drain cleaning. Does that make sense? All I'm trying to say, guys, is you don't have to go fully broad. You can in certain industries, you certainly can, but in other industries where there is more competition, pick a specialized service within the industry and build a brand around that. It's just a way to get attention and to bring leads into your agency. And you can always sell SEO services and other services to them. It's not just for that one, if that makes sense. So just to clarify, what I'm saying is, oh, God damn it, I thought I was typing. Try that again. Directory. Okay. So I got pushed down by yellow pages right now. I've seen that happen before. Anyway, so you can see, well, now because I showed my location and it knows I'm in Culpeper. Anyway, you can see tree service directory here. The point that I'm trying to make is I've got a tree service directory, and I say landscapers and excavators, and that's only because sometimes tree contractors also do landscaping and or excavating work. That's the only reason why I have those other categories on here. I'm not targeting those guys. All I target is tree service contractors. But because I'm ranked, again, I get leads all the time coming in. So I've not narrowed my pool of buyers. I've expanded it by niching down. And now I get leads that come into my sales pipeline 100% on autopilot without me having to even do a damn thing. Does that make sense? So you're not narrowing your pool of buyers. You're actually expanding it, or people will start to seek you out, is what I'm saying, right? Anyway, that is, again, my opinion, but I've been doing agency work since 2014, but lead gen, well, 2013, sorry, agency work since 2013, but I've been doing lead gen since 2010. And after all these years that I've been doing it, guys, the best move I ever made for my agency was to niche down. And I don't mean niching down from just anything to contractors. I mean niching down. That was my first step, but that wasn't really niching down, but niching down all the way to just tree service contractors. When I finally made that switch, which I believe was in 2019, that's when I really started to see growth with my agency. Okay. Anyway, hopefully that's clear. Last thing about this really quickly, guys, is if you are doing lead gen stuff, it's a little bit trickier with rank and rent, but you can, by the way, you can do rank and rent with multiple renters. If you do like a round robin phone service, right? To where like each time a call comes in, it goes to the next, like if you've got three buyers or renters or whatever, you could do a round robin where, you know, it's weighted 33% for each of them. So each time a call comes in, it goes like just cycles through 1, 2, 3, then back to 1, 2, 3, back to 1, 2, 3. You can do that as long as you're transparent and you charge less to rent those assets. It's the same thing you can do with pay per lead, right? You can charge as long as you're I do it. I've got tree service leads now that I sell. And in some cases, the contractors know that the lead can be sold up to 3 times. I give when I'm offering a pay per lead offer to a tree service contractor, they usually have that. It depends on where the location is and everything else. But if it's one that is an option available, then I tell them, look, I can sell you the lead exclusively for $60 per call. Or if you don't want exclusive, like if you want less than that, if you want to pay less than that, then I'll do it for $25 or sometimes $30 per call. But that lead can be sold up to 3 times. But I'm transparent about it. So it's up to you, contractor. If you want all the leads that I generate in this particular area exclusively, I'm going to charge you $60 per lead. But if you don't want to pay that much per lead, then I'm going to charge you 25 or 30, whatever it is, per call. But that lead can be sold up to 3 times because I have a system that I use that will do that. It very rare, and I tell them it very rarely is sold 3 times because I've only got 2 other contractors in the same area or whatever it is. But a lot of the times the lead will only be sold once. Sometimes, often, many times it will be sold twice, but very rarely, not very rarely, but it's not often that I see a lead sold 3 times. And again, it depends on how many buyers you have in a particular area, but just be transparent about it. That's all. So anyway, hopefully that was clear. What would you suggest to power up service area Google business profiles? All the same thing you would do without that for storefronts. None of that changes. Link building, geographic signals, reviews, engagement, all the things that we would normally do for a storefront business is the same for service area business. If you can publish a street address for a service area business, that in and of itself is a ranking boost, a huge ranking boost right now. Keep in mind, publishing the street address is against Google's terms of service for a service area business. It can trigger re-verification or in some cases suspension. So if you do not have the ability to re-verify or reinstate a Google business profile for a service area business that has an unpublished street address, then do not publish the street address. But if you have the ability to re-verify, if it's a real valid business, then you might want to consider doing that, which is publishing the street address, because you should be able to re-verify it or reinstate it if it gets suspended. And if it goes through, or even if you have to re-verify it, whatever, once that occurs, you should see a nice ranking boost just from that alone. So I've actually encouraged several of my clients over the last few weeks to publish their street address. So I've had one of my own go in the re-verification that I can't re-verify. It's still published. I can no longer edit it because it's requiring re-verification, and I cannot re-verify it. So it's still live, it's still published, but I just can't edit it anymore. So it is what it is. Ben says, how do you go about granting WordPress admin access to developers, VAs, and freelancers? Create them a user account. Go to WordPress users, new, create an account for them, set the permission level to whatever permission level you want to give to them. Give them access. Don't give them admin access. Give them anything below admin, right? So that way you can go in and remove them. They can't add new users and things like that, but then you can go in and remove them if you fire them or they quit or whatever. You can go in and remove them. Just don't give them admin access. Give them one of the lower level permissions. Does that make sense? I mean, maybe I'm not understanding the question, but it seems pretty straightforward to me. Just go in and add a new user where you set the permission levels. I'm sorry if that wasn't a better answer. I'm just not sure that's what I would do. It's pretty standard. So Raj says, how to nest local schema inside main organization schema, or should we make 2 blocks, one after the others of schema? From what I understand, it's okay to do 2 blocks. I've always preferred to do nested schema or connected data items. There's a number of terms for it. They all mean the same thing. Personally, I don't know how to code that myself. I always just use an app. I use Schema app. I've talked about this a lot. I use schemaapp.com. It's stupid expensive though. Use Clint Butler's Rank Gear or Rob Beal's Schema Tech. Those are 2 different services that are advanced schema generating apps that can do that kind of stuff. Like I said, I use Schema app just because I've been using it for like 4 or 5 years before these other apps that I just mentioned were available. And I'm used to it. I'm comfortable with it. I'm on a grandfathered pricing plan, so I'm just going to stay with that. But I use an app like that because it does the connected data items properly. Anytime I've tried to code anything in Schema on my own, I always screw it up. And if you guys have ever tried to correct an error in Schema, I mean, you might as well, I'd rather have my fingernails pulled out one by one than trying to figure that shit out. Like, seriously, it's absolutely maddening trying to find a misplaced comma or quote or squiggly bracket or something. And if I find an error in Schema, I just start over because you know what I mean? Like most of the time, because it's just, I can't find that stuff. I get a headache just looking at Schema for too long. No kidding. I am not that kind of a nerd that can do that kind of stuff. Some people are that are really good at that, not me. So that's why I use the apps. For connected data items, I just use an app that does it properly. But from what I understand, you can have 2 different blocks as long as they're both marking up elements that are present on that page. So like, for example, if it's a multi-location business, or even if it's a single location business, and the location landing page, which is the website URL associated with the Google Business Profile. So whatever you add is the website, the primary website for the Google Business Profile. I call that the location landing page because if it's a single location business, it's generally going to be the homepage URL. It's typical, it's normal, that's fine. But if it's a multi-location business, it should be most of the time going to be a specific inner page that is optimized for that particular location. In some cases, if it's a multi-location business that started with one location, sometimes the homepage will be the location landing page for the original Google Business Profile location, but then subsequent locations will have their own inner page that's optimized for those specific locations. What I'm saying is in any of those cases, on the homepage, you can have organization, and I recommend corporation schema, which is a subtype of organization schema, which is more appropriate for a for-profit business. So organization or corporation schema on the homepage, but you can also have local business with the most appropriate subtype schema on that same page, because it is both an organization, corporation, and a local business, right? So it can both be present on that page is what I'm saying. And from what I understand, again, this is relatively new to me, but that it is okay to have multiple elements of schema that aren't connected properly, as long as they are marking up elements of that page, like that are present on that page. And I may be incorrect about that, because that's relatively new to me from what I understand from reading some documentation about it. I was always under the impression that it should be connected properly, or it shouldn't be on the page at all. But from what I understand, it is okay. Anyway, moving on. Last two, and then we can get into some comments. So use an app was my short answer, or just put them both on there as long as it's marking up elements that are present on the page. Hey, Semantiacs. Okay. Jenny, what's up, man? This is 2 weeks in a row. That's, man, what do we owe the pleasure of that? And that's all sincerity, man. Jenny has been, I remember you from like 8 years ago. No kidding. Does the page with embedded map and NAP have to be indexed by Google to provide value to a Google business profile? No, it helps, but it doesn't have to be. Or would Google just crawling that page with the embedded and NAP be enough? With the embed and NAP be enough? Do map embeds even still work? Yeah, not as much as they used to, but if it's relevant, yeah, it can help. It's all about relevance. So would the page have to be indexed? No, not for, I mean, look, if you're going to be using it, as long as it's relevant, like you're linking to and embedding the Google business profile within relevant content, and Google comes and crawls it, that can produce an effect. Links don't have to be an index to produce an effect, guys. They have to be crawled. How do I know that? Because look, if you go into Search Console and export your external links, you're going to find links in there that are live, but they're not indexed, right? So Google knows they're there. How would Google show them to you in your backlink report that you export from Search Console if they're not indexed? If those links weren't being counted by Google, why would they be in your external backlink report in Search Console? So that's what I'm saying. You can find links if you go to Search Console and export your external backlinks, and you'll find that there will be links in your profile that are live, but aren't indexed. But Search Console shows them. So why is that? Because it means Google crawled them. Google is counting that link, or else it wouldn't be in the Search Console data. Right? Whether it's indexed or not, it doesn't matter. Google has to crawl it. So remember, there's 3 stages. There's discovered, not crawled, crawled, not indexed, and indexed. So those are the 3 stages. So discovered, not crawled means Google's aware of it, but it's not crawled the link. So that doesn't provide a benefit that I'm aware of. But crawled, not indexed does provide an effect. And I've done testing on that. That's been a few years since I've done testing on that, but we did some non-indexed see the links, even if the site's not indexed. Does that make sense? So as long as it's crawled, it should provide an effect, provided that it's relevant. Because again, relevance is where it's at right now, guys. And that makes sense to me. So do map embeds still even work? If they're embedded in relevant content, yes. And then also, if you can send traffic and engagement signals to the page that it's embedded on, and then engage with the map through that page, that's a good signal. Does that make sense? What cool tool do you recommend for checking ADA compliance? They're a dime a dozen, man. I don't really have one that I don't know if you're asking about doing it like in mass or in bulk for like prospecting purposes. There are some scraping apps that will look for that, ADA compliance. So that if you're trying to develop a prospect list of sites that don't have ADA compliance, so that you can reach out to them and offer that as a service. There are scraping apps that do that. I would assume David Sprague's Rep Kahuna does that. I would think any of the more modern ones would do that. Check out D7 Lead Finder. That might do it. Yeah. If you're talking about just checking individual sites, just go to Google and search ADA website compliance checker. Like, no shit. Like, go to Google, guys. ADA compliance website checker, maybe. I don't do that kind of work, so it doesn't matter to me, but right here. There's a bunch of them, right? But like I said, if you're trying to do this at scale for like prospecting purposes, I know that some of the scraping apps do that. I've seen it. I'm not sure which one's off the top of my head. So beautiful. Okay, I think that was it. All right, guys, we can get into a few comments. We got about 5 minutes, so we should be good.
Well, yeah, I was just scrolling back through. I don't see. Let's see.
Meta refresh is doable in Blogger. Yeah, I remember it. It's been a while since I've done it, but that was one of them that you can add. You can edit HTML coded, not just in the WYSIWYG editors, guys. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like editing theme code. And in Blogger, I know you used to be able to do that. So thank you for confirming that, David. Jim says, I used to do server-side cloaking with hundreds of thousands of pages on each site. There's money to be made, but it's a cat and mouse game. Yeah, you're right. Where the cat, Google, always wins. I agree. At some point, you're going to get burned. That's why I've always done it just as a temporary thing. Same here. Oh, Cecilia. Cecilia said, I'm here. David still does those shady tactics. That's all right. I mean, hey, look, to each their own. Like, I don't find any problem with it. Just be aware that it's can cause problems. So just be aware of that. I mean, if you're comfortable with risk, and I'm not saying this to you, David, to whoever was asking about it earlier, I'm okay with doing those kind of things. I don't like to risk properties though. Like, I hate doing rework. I hate losing assets that I put time, effort, and resources into. I hate that. God, that pisses me off. So that's why I try not to do anything that's potentially going to cause. Now we're all in SEO, so everything we do can change in 3 days and become a problem. Anyway, I try not to do things that are going to cause my assets that I put time and money and effort into to be removed or stop producing. I teach the shady tactics. I learned how to make Google want it, so I'm okay with spamming. I'm a great cook anyhow. I need, yeah, okay. Cecilia says, I don't have any land flipping questions. My day is incomplete. You could have asked one, Cecilia. I would have been happy to answer it for you. How long till POI or BLF will start showing results? It has been a month now. I don't know. What did you do with it? Like, it's a tool. It's how you use the tool that matters. It's not the tool itself. So, Amir, I'm talking to you because I just don't know. I don't know what it is that you did with it, and I'm not picking on you, Amir, but I'm saying, like, if I bought Backlink Factory and my Google business profile didn't move, what did you use it? No, but I bought it. And I'm not saying that you said that, Amir. I'm just saying, how did you use it? Right? There's just having the tool doesn't mean that it's being used properly is all I'm saying. I'm not picking on you, man. I'm just using that as an example. I'm utilizing a similar tactic with my stacks. The answer to the question for me is 3 days to 2 weeks until you see results. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not a ninja at that anyway. I've only barely used it. I just don't have the bandwidth for that right now anyway. So. You learned some schema nuggets from me this morning. What did you learn from me this morning, David? I didn't even know I was doing schema this morning. It's all a blur. The SEO geek, Brian, what's up, man? What's up, buddy? Brian's been around for a long time too, man. You still think that adding the CTRFI site to Google AdSense incentivize Google to rank that site, and so the traffic increases, and so the link backlink signals would be better? I don't know. I've not added AdSense to any of my sites, and I should, because I have some that get quite a bit of traffic. I've not attempted that because that's not my monetization strategy, but I know, Anselmo, that's not yours either. You're asking would it help with SEO? I don't know. I've not tested that, but that's a good test, Anselmo. Try that for sure. How would you build a silo for a real estate agent? You might not need to, man. Like don't think that you have to build silo structures in the sites in order for them to perform. A lot of times you don't need that. Like the only reason why I build silo structures into tree service sites now is because I build multi-location projects now. If I'm going to build a standalone site for a tree service contractor, it's not going to be a siloed site. It doesn't need to be. So don't add complexity to a site build just because you hear, and I'm not saying you are, Craig, please don't take it that way. I'm just saying, I know I am totally guilty of overcomplicating builds because I thought I was going to be smart and I was trying to incorporate all this SEO stuff that I learned, when really all you're doing is adding complexity to a project that doesn't need it. A real estate agent likely doesn't. I mean, again, it depends on what it is that they do in their business and if they do commercial and residential, or maybe different types of residential real estate, vacant land, single family houses, mobile homes. Like it might make sense to silo a site that way. But from most of the realtors that I know, they basically deal with one type of property, and it's not necessary for that. So you'd just be adding complexity to the project for no reason. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't. A real estate agent, again, it depends. What is the use case, right? Hopefully that's clear. Video schema was instructional. Okay. Well, thanks, David. Yeah, just remind me tomorrow. I'll copy and paste the template if you'd like into chat. And someone says he just added some sites to AdSense, so we will see. Cool. Well, thanks guys for everybody being here. Only 1 minute over. Adam bailed on me about 6 minutes or 7 minutes ago. So was it something I said? Anyway, guys, appreciate you all. We have the Build with Bradley group discussion tomorrow for those of you that are in the mastermind. So that's always fun. Hope to see you guys then. Otherwise,